Hello, welcome to Dukascopy TV. Now, there's a lot of talk surrounding alleged claims that the US has or is bugging some offices in the EU. Naturally, this could have serious implications on the US-EU relationship, but what could it mean from a financial and trade standpoint? Well, joining me on the line is director and co-founder of the European Centre for International Political Economy, Fredrik Erixon. Thanks for joining me today, Mr. Erixon. First of all, in your view, just how serious is this allegation of bugging, and what has been your reaction so far?
Well, it's serious, of course. It's always serious when either facts or rumors like this surface, and then, of course, it becomes even more serious when you're talking about two entities or two partners that are pretty close to each other, that perceive each other as not only allies, but perhaps even more brothers in arms in terms of their understanding of the world, where dangers are, what we want to accomplish in everything from the world economy, trade to security policy, peace, etc. So it is serious. At the same time, I think it's important that we caution politicians, especially in Europe right now, not to jump into conclusions about what actually has been going on and not to make the issue bigger than it is.
Could this escalate into a phase of paranoia where Europe-based businesses and other financial institutions start to take greater action just to protect themselves from possible intrusions into their personal data?
I think that's obviously the case, and I think going a couple of weeks back and looking at the allegations that came from the Snowden revelations on PRISM and access, basically wholesale access to commercial databases in the United States when it comes to the storage of data they have for Europeans or for other nationalities. I think this is becoming, it's already a heated issue in the world, not perhaps so much transatlantically, but we have problems on data portability, cybersecurity in many different parts of the world. The European Union has been in the process of setting up a new data protection regulation in the past years. And if you look at the initial proposal, and if you look at what the European Parliament have said about this proposal and what changes they want to make to it, it's an open question whether current access, the current free trade rules on data between the United States and Europe could actually remain if this new regulation would enter into force. So those issues are already heated, and we know many companies that spend lots of resources today in order to find ways to protect their data assets. And of course we know that this is also true for individuals, that they increasingly take measures to avoid being subject to snooping by different governments in the world.
What about the economies of Europe? I mean, the region relies quite heavily on the US for trade and vice versa, of course, but this allegation could have a profound impact on Europe's economies, which are already under pressure.
Well, I mean, what we've seen so far is a suggestion by some that the current negotiations over transatlantic trade and investment partnership should take a pause, even if they haven't really started yet, but they should take a pause until perhaps more information has been exchanged about what exactly has been going on, or to use the words of President Hollande in France, until trust has been restored between the two. So what we're talking about there is not exactly disrupting existing trade. It's much more about not pushing ahead with new trade liberalization until we know exactly what has been going on. But of course, this also comes on the back on the data protection regulation, which I mentioned previously, which is something which would have a disruptive effect on existing trade. Even if it only concerns data portability between different countries, data portability today is such a tremendously important part of larger supply chains in the world, especially transatlantically, trade between the United States and Europe, where you have lots of intra-firm trade, where you have lots of big multinational companies in the ICT sector that take up a large part of this existing trade. So if there would be a new regulation in Europe which would cut off the free access of transposing data from the United States into Europe, that would hurt existing trade, and not just data portability, but existing trade in goods and service tremendously.
Okay, that's just about all we've got time for at the moment. Stay tuned for further interviews and market updates here on Dukascopy TV. But for now, goodbye.